To be we're going to be talking about the military coups in Africa in recent times and the kind of threats that they pose to democracy on the continent. And we're going to be chatting with human rights activist and lawyer Chidi Odinkalu, who will be taking us, giving us different perspectives on the coups on the continent today. Mr. Chidi, are you here? Mr. Chidi? Hi, good evening, sir. You're welcome, sir.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine. I'm fine. Thank you for joining us this evening. It's so much of a pleasure to have you with us. So we're going to go straight into the topic for today, which is about the military coups on the continent in recent time. We have had how many? In four in less than a year, and that started with Mali, the failed coup in Mali. That was last year. Is it no? Mali. Now, Niger, there was a fake coup in Niger in 2021, and then we had another coup in Mali, then another one in Sudan, then Guinea coup. That's like, and then recently, January 24th, we had the Burkina Faso coup. What exactly is going on, sir?
Well, thank you very much. It's 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 a combination of factors. I don't think it is one thing.
Okay.
Of course, other people are welcome to join in with a different point of view, but there is a security dimension to this. And there is also a governance dimension to the causation and diagnostics that we've got to take account of. To begin with the security dimension, if you notice, with the exception of of Zimbabwe, really, that's the coup that overthrew Robert Mugabe, even if they don't want to call it a coup. The major coups that you've had in Africa so far have been in a contiguous zone around the Sahel. And
Yes.
the Sahel is that region between the Mediterranean coastline of Africa in the north and the rim of the savannah in the middle belt of the south. And it's characterized by aridity, very high aridity, and much of it is actually desert. If you also look at that part of Africa, it is the part of Africa where essentially when they met in Berlin between November 1884 and February 1885, the white folks who divided of Africa drew straight lines in the sand as boundaries. And they didn't know where these places were, but they just had maps and they were drawing lines. Now, the fact is that the Sahel has been a brutal part of the world long before now, long before the onset of the 20th century, as a matter of fact. And when you look at the history of the continent, you see that there's been a lot of wars fought over the control of the Sahel. Currently, it is the site of an Islamist threat across the board, from Mauritania to the west, to indeed Eritrea to the east. That entire band is being contested. And as that contest unfolds, things are happening. Um, and part of the things that are happening is the use of the security crisis created by the Islamist threat
Yeah.
um, as justification for soldiers to take down uh, regimes that claim democratic legitimacy, but whose legitimacy is actually tenuous. We can discuss why, but this will lead to the second dimension of the diagnostics.
Okay. You just mentioned the fact that these the jihadists, that's the activities of the jihadists, are is now being used as an excuse by the military in these African countries to topple the government. Let's talk about the fact that the citizens' reactions to these coups are, how do I put it? The citizens seem happy with the overthrow of this government. Take the incident in Burkina Faso, for instance. There were thousands of people who were rejoicing that the president, the elected president, had been removed. The same thing with Guinea. We saw Conde being harassed on duly, and then the one in Mali. It was almost the same thing when Assimi Goita got in there, except for the Sudanese people who are still protesting today. The question is, are we saying that there is no that the people, the citizens of these countries, do not are not keen on these changes in government, as we would put it now?
Well, this question, I guess, will lead me to the second dimension of my point, which is governance. And for many people in these countries, government has failed. Elected government has failed them.
Mm,
And in that sense, ECOWAS has also failed them. The most classic example, of course, is Guinea.
mm,
In Guinea, the Alpha Conde, who was the president of Guinea, was a political detainee when he was an opposition politician under the late Lansana Conte. Um, and he was exiled, and when he came back, he was detained. As a matter of fact, I personally was one of the lawyers who acted for Alpha Conde when he was a political detainee in Guinea. Okay?
yeah.
Now, when Conde then got elected as president, under Guinea's constitution, he was supposed to do 2 terms. As he started getting to the end of his second term, he decided he was going to change the constitution in order to make himself president for life. At the time, Conde was looking to make himself as president for life. The Guinean people were resisting that. So he used soldiers and the gendarmerie to overwhelm them, organized a so-called referendum in May, I believe, 2020, in the middle of the first COVID lockdown, and used it to rig himself back to power as the president for life of Guinea at the age of nearly 83.
Yep.
The people that had not given up their resistance, he had shot a lot of them, killed a lot of them, and he was not delivering. And ECOWAS, that is now going around wielding the instrument of sanctions against these new regimes, did not sanction Alpha Conde when he procured that rigged referendum. That is what you are seeing. That this is what you describe as the people being happy. It's not like the people are necessarily happy that soldiers have taken over power, but the enemy of my enemy is my friend. I guess is the
I get it.
the people of Guinea have decided that they whatever it takes
To
to take
remove.
Alpha Conde out of the equation is fine by them. Now, it's not much different in Mali. When Mali organized parliamentary elections in April 20, 2020, the opposition actually did quite well. Now, what then happened? Under the constitution of Mali, as in most francophone countries, results have got to be certified by the constitutional court. So the ruling party used the constitutional court, which they controlled, to steal the seats that were won by Mali's opposition. That is what took the people of Mali to the streets and led to the uprising, which the military used to overthrow the government in power. The military is doing what they do very well, get opportunistic in sensing a moment where the government is vulnerable and there is a fever pitch for change of a populist kind. That's what's happened in Mali. That's what's happened in Guinea. It's not much different, really, but in a different context from what happened to President Kabore in Burkina Faso.
Hmm. Okay. So you talked about ECOWAS and AU. Today, the AU, the African, the AU decided suspended Burkina Faso, and on Friday, ECOWAS did the same thing. And it just seems as if the only things that the regional blocs, the regional organizations could do is just condemn and suspend and other sanctions. My question is, of what use? Is there anything more than that these organizations can do?
You see, there's a fundamental problem here. The ECOWAS has a good governance protocol. The AU has the African Charter on Democracy, Elections, and Governance, and and all of those have standards on governance. But the first thing is they do have standards on elections. Okay? And democratic elections are supposed to be the fundamental basis for legitimacy of government. And the Constitutive Act of the African Union, which is the treaty that establishes the African Union, says that the AU will condemn unconstitutional changes in government. But they define unconstitutional change in government only as the overthrow by the military of a government that claims electoral legitimacy, or the overthrow of the government by mercenaries. What they have not done is recognize that elections have been brought into disrepute in Africa by themselves, the heads of states. And increasingly, elections are laughable. They are laughable processes by which authoritarian regimes and dictatorships procure their own continuance in power. The Many of the outcomes, as a matter of fact, don't reflect the will of the people. And when they happen, the AU, ECOWAS, East African Community, the regional economic communities all sign off on them as okay. People have become scandalized. As a result, because the regional economic communities and the AU have failed to condemn the bastardization of elections, the people have made their own choices and decided, you know what? If you're not going to condemn elections, then don't disturb us if and when we get rid of these people by any means necessary. The difference, the control to all of this is Sudan. And what is the issue in Sudan? Sudan is the one country where state building and the identity of the citizens is unified. In a lot of these countries, civic identity is still emerging. So if you go to a place like Burkina Faso, for instance, civic identity is still in emergence. In Nigeria, of course, where most of us on this conversation are, most people have subnational identities before they have a national identity. It's not much different in Ethiopia. There are Oromos and Amharas before you get, and you struggle to find an Ethiopian. My own joke is that, if you're looking for an Oromo, an Amhara, a Tigrayan, Yoruba, in Ethiopia, a Tigrayan, a Yoruba, Igbo, Hausa, Efik, or Ibibio in Nigeria. You will find a lot of them. But if you're looking for a Nigerian, the best place to find it is the departure hall of an international airport. There are the few people who carry passports, okay? But there are very few of them. The people who exist don't answer. Most of the people in Nigeria don't answer Nigerians. Most of the people in Ethiopia don't want to be Ethiopians, and so we're struggling to forge these identities. If you call a demonstration against Buhari, some people will tell you, when your own person was there, where were you? Why didn't you protest against them? Leave him, he is our devil. Let him stay there. That is the point that the Sudanese, where Sudanese are different, because the Sudanese identity is very solid. And it does not matter whether you are from Bahr el Ghazal or whether you are from Kordofan. The Sudanese identity is supreme. Because of that, the Sudanese have rallied against the military, irrespective of where they come from or their differences. This is where the difference does exist.
Okay. So you have established the fact that we have a fundamental problem, which is the issue of faulty elections, or should I say, elections that are considered not fair and free and fair. Okay, so let's go back to these coups again and the countries in which these are happening. All of the countries, that's Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso, Guinea, they are all in West Africa. And personally, for me, I feel that it's too close to home. Is that something? Is this something that should be of concern to us here in Nigeria?
Why
In
not?
your own opinion?
Oh, absolutely, yes. Because this is being fought out in the Sahel, as I told you. Look, and this is part of the challenge with the emergence of Al Qaeda in the at the end of the last millennium, and its domestication on the continent in the Mediterranean and the continent with Akim, that is Al Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb at the beginning of the century. And Al Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb has been quite active in a trans-Sahelian sense. Um, so that's one. That's at the northern end. But it's not just the northern end. They've run operations, for instance, as far as Mali, as far as Burkina. And because of that, countries like Algeria, for instance, and um, and Libya, we are doing basically converted northern Mali and northern Chad into bases for sorting out their internal security problems up north. As they did that, also they created channels and avenues for a massive trade in in small arms and light weapons in the Sahel, as well as a massive ideologization and recruitment of Islamists for Mujahideen, for all of that. Okay, now in 2011, when the Security Council did the vote to authorize action against Gaddafi, they in Nigeria, for instance, there was an advice by the national security establishment that Nigeria should seek to tap onto that. And at that point, I believe Nigeria was in the Security Council. Nigeria should seek to tap onto its support for that measure in request for a security buffer against what was going to follow, which was a vast movement of small arms, light weapons, and mujahideen into the northern parts of the country. That did not happen. Nigeria simply voted through that measure as a member of the Security Council. What happened? Within months, quite literally, you had a flood and a vast escalation in the northeast of Nigeria as a result of the failures of that. The guns were coming from Zintan in Libya. Okay? I mean, there had been a few guns from the Niger Delta into the northeast, but most of the guns that led to the vast escalation in 2011, which was testified to by the Gatimari report, the Gaji Gatimari report in 2011, came actually from Algeria and Sudan, as the Mujahideen and the guns went awash after the collapse of Gaddafi's regime. They went south. This is the challenge here you face. And now you have a situation in which Mali has fallen. Chad, by the way, has toppled its constitutional regime. And in Chad, all manner of rebels, including soldiers, trade in arms quite easily. Burkina is down. Niger Republic is tottering, could easily be the next domino. All of those are on the boundaries of Nigeria. There's no way that Nigeria cannot be affected. Hello? Hello? Does anyone hear me? Does anyone hear me? Okay, thanks a lot, Chris. So, have we lost our hostess? President Kaba, you had about 78 coups in Africa. Okay, so let's also, I think it's important to get a sense of action. In 1992, you had the Africa Economic Community Treaty adopted. It is called the Treaty of Abuja. Now, in 1993, the AU started. At the same time, in 1992, ECOWAS had authorized the review of its treaty. The revision of the treaty was led by General Gowon. Regional relations. And that these two developments at the AU level and the ECOWAS level propelled a set of developments that ultimately led to the adoption of the Constitutive Act of the African Union. Address the instability in the Sahel. Now, why was that so? The Sahel was the site of 3, 4 separate regional integration arrangements, none of to impose themselves on the situation. You had the Arab Maghreb Union, in which Morocco and Algeria had never agreed because of the situation of the position. Current African states with its headquarters in Sirte in Libya. And then you've got ECOWAS, which is there and goes African community to which South Sudan belongs. You could argue that there are 5 regional integration arrangements at least in the Sahel, and is of the tape so that people are able to assess the factual foundations and not overreach.
Hello,
And
sir.
yes, ma'am.
The questions, sir.
Yeah, well, I think I've dealt with the first question, hopefully, at least in some form. I may not have provided an answer, but
I think the second question, sir, if I may, is that how can ECOWAS play a more active role and the African Union a big brother, but she doesn't help us. I have a friend from Togo that says Togo is bigger, Lagos is bigger than Togo, and we are not playing an active role through ECOWAS, through
to President Tubman in Liberia, and essentially argued for traditional notions of sovereignty based on the inherited activist configuration to regional cooperation, and indeed for a renegotiation of the colonial borders. Now, just 4 months before the OAU summit, the founding OAU summit in Cotonou. Now, there were several back to the soldiers led by Colonel Yadima, who killed him. And um, now the suspicion, though, never left. And now the suspicion, though, never left that there were two unlikely parties who were involved in the assassination of President Olympio. One was the French, in collaboration with America. And the history of Togo is pretty murky. I don't want to go into that here. But if you've been in Lomé, you will notice that you can actually walk from Lomé to Ghana. The boundary between Ghana and Lomé is inside Lomé. Now, um, so there was that. And the other side of the allegation was that President Nkrumah had been involved in the killing of President Olympio. That poisoned, actually, the atmosphere in the first OAU summit. And what you had as a result was
Hello, sir. Hello, Prof. Seems network has struck again. Hello, Prof. Okay. Can anyone hear Prof? Hello, Prof. Looks like it's connecting back. Yes. Hello, Prof. Okay. Looks like this conversation would have to be aborted. So, yes, and thank you to everyone who has spoken. Okay, I'm still getting quite some requests, but it's actually Prof that I want him to complete this conversation. But since it's not likely, I'm just going to be running through some of the things that you said, and hopefully it gets back with us shortly before we come to the end of this space. So it has been established that number one, we need to get credible elections on the African continent, and then there is no magic solution to the issue of ECOWAS or even Nigeria playing its big brother role on the African continent. And then, if we really give this a thought, do you think Nigeria is capable as of now to be able to play the big brother role that some African and even people who are not Africans expect of this great nation, Nigeria? While we think about all of those, I would have to end this this Twitter space. Okay, but before that, let me just give Mr. Soji Adeniyi a moment. Let's hear what he has to say. Hello, sir. You're back again. Hello.
Hello, do I have the floor?
Yes.
Okay,
Please.
thank you very much. I just want to say that Prof, as always, has given us the historical background.
I would appreciate if you.
Come again?
I said I would appreciate if you make it
Oh
quick.
yes, sure. And to me, I think you need to deepen this conversation by seeing the possibility of having Prof back, even if we are not able to reconnect to him today, because there are issues that are very historical that need clear understanding on the part of especially the young people, because I keep emphasizing on the fact that unfortunately some of this history have been wiped off our system in Nigeria, and a lot more people need to hear and understand where we're coming from. Just like my brother Odia was mixing it up, thinking that there must have been a conspiracy
I can't
theory
find him.
around the falling apart and the incursion of the military, contrary to what Prof think, because the regional integration in itself is not by any means, and a fallout of. Actually,
Hello.
we get more and more people engaged locally and within in order to take us to the promised.
All right. All right. Thank you very much, sir.
The country to look at opportunities that exist in the African continent that proves that Africa can be Africa of Africa, and that all of us need to begin to think outside the box to get to the result we need. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Prof is not back. We would have to end this. So yes, Miss Ain, thank you to everyone who joined the space today to talk about coups and the threat to democracy in Nigeria. Unfortunately, we have not been able to provide some what would you call, what did Prof call it? He said the magic solution to the issue of foods on the African continent. But one thing that we have been able to establish so far is the fact that young people need to get involved in order for us to get credible elections on the African continent. So I will leave us with that thought this evening and say goodbye and enjoy your evening. My name is Oluwakemi Abimbola. See you some other time. Bye bye.